It was a very eventful weekend. Fernando Tatis, I'm looking at you. Before we get into it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tap that little bell to get notified every time we go live. We're recapping all of the weekend's action up next. What's up, and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, August 15th. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Pretty crazy weekend for baseball on and off the field. Of course, today on the show, Fernando Tatis' suspension. We will start with that. Bunch of prospect happenings, the waiver wire, starter sit, and much more. But first, Scotty, I know that you went to the Marlins-Braves game this weekend.
Yes.
So give us the lowdown on Lone Depot Park. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, with a lowercase L.
Interesting.
I don't know why. It's an odd branding decision. It just looks like an I and a very difficult word to pronounce. How is it? It's not the first time I've been there. It's the first time in a while. It was the first time I took my kids to a baseball game, an official MLB game that counts in the standings, and so that was fun. It's a nice enough park. It has its charms. It's always a little weird.
Nobody was there.
Well, a decent
like
number,
that's the biggest drawback.
There, just most of the people who were there were in Braves jerseys. I will point out. But what I was gonna say is it's a little weird playing baseball under a roof. It's definitely more enjoyable with air conditioning, though. So it's like, at August in South Florida. Do you really want to sit out in the open? No, you don't. And of course, there's a lot of potential for rainouts there without the roof. So it's worth it, but it kind of doesn't feel like baseball too.
Oh, I hear you.
The whole thing feels a little smaller.
I went to Arizona last year in August, which is just a terrible decision. Don't ever do it. And I went to Chase Field to see a Diamondbacks game, and it was the same thing. It was like my first time at a baseball game with a roof where it was air conditioned, and it was like pretty cool. I've got to admit that. But yeah, it was also kind of weird seeing a baseball game in that way.
You guys see that I went to the Humphrey Dome in Minneapolis. I've been to Tropicana. Like, those are weird places to see a baseball game. At least Marlins Park and Chase Field and these like new stadiums, they've got really tall roofs, but like Tropicana and the Humphrey Dome are like, it's like claustrophobic.
Oh, I could see it with Tropicana. I mean, obviously everything that goes on in that place, but
it's a weird stadium.
That's a conversation for another day. Speaking of the Marlins, real quick, we'll wrap up with that. Wearing my my Marlins jersey, Sandy Alcantara, Chris. So I am now an honorable Marlins fan joining you. So thank you for letting me be part of the club.
I mean, look, who am I to kink shame? If you wanna feel the shame of being a Marlins fan, who am I to disinvite you?
If I had to choose like a favorite National League team just based on the players they have, I would choose the Marlins.
I mean, look, you would have had something to cheer for in 2003.
Womp womp. All right, Chris, you're I don't know. We're gonna ban you from the podcast for like the next 10 minutes. Just kidding. Let's start off with Fernando Tatis Jr. Obviously here, suspended 80 games. This Jeff Passan bomb just dropped on Friday afternoon. It was like, whatever, Friday news dump. Oh, Fernando Tatis out for 80 games. Crazy stuff. Testing positive for a performance-enhancing substance, claiming that he inadvertently took the substance as part of a medication to treat ringworm. But it turns out that he's not appealing the suspension or anything, so whatever. He acknowledges that he made a mistake. And
to be clear, he did appeal the suspension because apparently, at least it's been reported that the suspension the test happened in May or March, and it just wasn't announced because I think this was Hector Gomez. I think I saw that it wasn't announced because he was out, and so they went through the appeal process and it finally got announced. At least that's what I read.
So obviously seems like a bad choice then, because he was injured that whole time. That just makes it worse. Now, it was reported that the Padres didn't find out until the afternoon we all found out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was going to be my next statement. I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's why they traded for Juan Soto, but that part.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, very weird. Anyway, Tatis, for the rest of this season, he will miss the remaining 48 games for the Padres, and he will miss, obviously, the beginning of next season. And it depends how many games they play in the postseason, assuming that the Padres play in the postseason. And that will determine how many games he misses next year. But let's just say he's going to miss
the first
month of the season for next year. We'll get into that, like, how that affects his draft stock for next season. But I do want to point out that I've notified the authorities at CBS, and he has been removed from the undroppable list. So I know some people reached out about that issue, and it seems like you can drop Fernando Tatis now, which obviously makes sense in redraft leagues. Now, for next year, Scott, let's just assume it's the first month that Fernando Tatis is missing.
Yeah.
Where do you think he's going to get drafted for fantasy purposes?
Well, where do I think he will get drafted, or where would I take him? Because I think the answer is different there. And fortunately, we've kind of gone through this once already with the player who, at least at the start of this year, was valued as closely to Tatis as anybody could be, and that's Ronald Acuna, who was projected to miss the same amount of time at the start of this season. He ended up being a late first rounder, I guess, in 5x5 leagues anyway, his better format. I was not willing to take him until like the middle of round 2, which means I never got a chance to take him, and that's fine. I think even with Acuna kind of hitting his best case scenario with the timeline, it's still fair to wonder where he should have been taken. I don't think it's clear cut that the people who took him in the first round benefited from that. So, and then in Tatis's case, I mean, we won't have seen him play yet after the wrist surgery. He has a recurring shoulder issue that could always pop up and set him back further. So there's just like, yeah, it would kind of be the same thing for me. I haven't actually lined up the players yet, and it wouldn't make sense to really until the season's over. But I am myself not willing to look at Tatis until the middle of round 2. And you got to consider also, you won't be able to put him in an IL spot, unlike Acuna, which hurts him taking up a bench spot all that time. Yeah.
So I'm looking at Fantasy Pros ADP from before the season, and Ronald Acuna wound up at 13.2 when everything was said and done. So I do think we'll probably see a similar value for Fernando Tatis heading into next year, late first, early second round. Scotty there saying he's probably waiting until the middle of the second round to draft Fernando Tatis. Chris, do you kind of agree with that sentiment, that valuation of Fernando Tatis? And do you have any thoughts just like from a macro career perspective? Because obviously, like, this is huge for baseball, because I don't want to assume things. Like, obviously the guy's still super young, but I mean, any chance at the Hall of Fame is probably gone now for Fernando Tatis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have not seen a player who failed a test make it into the Hall of Fame, but we also haven't seen a situation like this where it's so early in his career that, like, he's got 13 years left on his contract, something like that. So like
he's 23. Like, most players haven't even reached the majors yet. He has time for a whole career still.
Yeah.
After this,
I would think it won't matter if he stays on the trajectory he was on, which is he's got 81 career home runs before his age 23 season. So plus, that's pretty incredible.
It's likely 20 years before he's up for Hall of Fame consideration. I mean, it's going to be a completely different generation of voters.
God, I'll be 54.
Who knows? That's maybe I'll be one of the voters by then.
Probably not.
God.
But yeah, no, I don't have much worry about that. Like, I don't know. There were a lot of pointed quotes out of the Padres dugout or clubhouse about Tatis, and I think his teammates should feel really let down by the way this season has gone. Getting hurt in a motorcycle accident is just dumb. Like, I don't know, man. Don't ride motorcycles if you're a professional athlete. I don't know. It seems reckless. And then getting suspended for steroids, like, he's let his team down in a big way. I don't know.
AJ Preller was ticked.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's rare that you see teammates criticize a guy publicly in the way that they did. And so, I think he's going to have a lot of work to do to repair things in that locker room. But if he comes back next season and it's, the end of May and he's played a full month and he's got a 960 OPS, I don't think anybody's going to really care.
Yeah, I thought the most interesting one, Chris, and I saw you tweet about it, was Mike Clevenger, who, not that he's been any angel, everyone's situation is different, but kind of pot calling the kettle black, calling him out.
A little, yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't really a big fan of that, but whatever. If there is one positive from this situation, which is obviously weird to talk about, but Ha-Sung Kim should keep an everyday role now as a result, and he's played very well. So he's 22% rostered. He's got second, third base, and shortstop eligibility. Looks like he will continue to play shortstop for the San Diego Padres. So there you go. Fernando Tatis, going to miss likely the first month of the season. Probably looking at the early to mid second round where he will be drafted next year. But we've got a long time before we get to that. All right, now let's actually get into the on-field action.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
All right, Scotty, I will let you kick us off. And will you do Vinny Pasquantino for the, third day in a row?
No, I should. He deserves to be. I said, oh, my goodness gracious, when I looked at the box score and saw what Vinny Pasquantino did Sunday. But no, I'll spare you that. Pick up Vinny Pasquantino if he's still available. He isn't in like a third of CBS Sports leagues. Anyway, who am I gonna do? I don't even remember now. Who did I say I was gonna do?
Drew Rasmussen.
Rasmussen, yes, the even bigger breadstick, Drew Rasmussen, yes, because he took a perfect game into the ninth inning against the Orioles. It was broken up on a Jorge Mateo double. Ended up going 8 1/3 in all. Mateo came around to score. So there was one run allowed. No walks, 7 strikeouts. It was, about the best we've ever seen Drew Rasmussen. 17 swinging strikes on 87 pitches. Very, very efficient. Like, there was no question he was going to get a chance to complete this, to try to complete this perfect game because he was just throwing so few pitches every inning. But on that note, like, going deep into games hasn't been something we've seen a lot of from Drew Rasmussen. His last start of even 7 innings was June 4th. He's gone 6+ innings 5 times all year. He is, even prior to this great start, he's rostered in 74% of CBS Sports leagues. I imagine that's because he has an ERA below 3. He has 7 wins now. It's a decent total. Obviously, the Rays helping him out with that.
One win in the last 2 months before this, though. Actually, one win since the end of May.
Okay, good point. And, obviously the starts have been especially short since he came back from the IL. What I'm trying to say is I think Rasmussen is rosterable. He's useful. I don't really think this perfect game changes, or this, it wasn't actually a perfect game. This, a near perfect game, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's fair to say.
I don't think
a near perfect game is kind of like a near miss in a plane crash, Yeah. A near miss doesn't count.
Right. It doesn't. It's like horseshoes, as they say. 368 xFIP. The xERA is even higher. He doesn't go that deep into games. The strikeout rate is, less than 1 per inning. Pretty good ground ball rate, but just kind of just a pretty good pitcher with RP eligibility and not really much more to take away from this than that.
Yeah, I think the RP eligibility is probably why he's so widely rostered in CBS Sports leagues. I would guess in other formats where the SPART doesn't matter, he's probably a little lower. But yeah, like he's a good pitcher. He's not an ace. And even in this one, like you saw, he doesn't pitch deep into games. He pitched deep into this one. He threw 87 pitches. So it's, he needs to be incredibly efficient to go deep into games. It's really hard to do that. So, I think I agree with Scott's assessment there.
All right. Well, there are 3 names that stand out in the shallowest leagues. They're all between 74 and 79% rostered on CBS. Scott, how would you rank these 3 if you're just looking to add them from the weekend? Rasmussen and then Ranger Suarez, who had a great start at the Mets this weekend, 7 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts for him. And since returning, his walks are way down. His ground balls are back up. His swinging strike rate is also back up. He's 77% rostered, also SPARP eligible. And then Brady Singer, really impressive start against the Dodgers on Sunday. 6 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts with 19 swinging strikes against one of the best lineups in baseball. He's 79% rostered at Tampa Bay this week. So really shallow league plays here, Scott, but how do you rank those 3? Rasmussen, Ranger Suarez, Brady Singer.
Yeah, I actually think I put Rasmussen the last of that group. I could understand taking him over Suarez. Certainly the ERA and whip overall have been better than Suarez, but Suarez has looked more like 2021 Suarez since returning from the IL. You pointed out the walks, the ground balls, they're in the right direction. When he is going well like that, you can count on him giving you 6+ innings with more regularity than Drew Rasmussen. So I would put him ahead of Rasmussen. And Brady Singer, I think, clearly belongs at the top of that list. His start against the Dodgers on Sunday, 1 hit over 6 innings, struck out 7, 19 swinging strikes. And over his last 7 starts now, Brady Singer has a 1.99 ERA, 101 whip, 9.7 K per 9, has a 3.35 xFIP for the year, and is looking like a late year breakout here.
It's sort of hard to figure out how he's doing it though, because he's got like 1 pitch.
Yeah,
He throws 3 pitches, sinker, slider, changeup, but the changeup's not particularly good.
And he only uses it.
Yeah, he uses it very sparingly, even against lefties. Even against lefties, it's like a 17% pitch. Almost never throws it to righties. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure I buy it. The slider's a really, really great pitch, though. So, that certainly helps.
That's what stands out most to me, Chris, is the fact that if you just look at the whiff rate, the slider has improved tremendously year over year, and his control. I mean, last year he was, I think, 3.7 walks per 9, and this year he's right around 2. That's massive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like a lot of the constituent parts make look pretty good. I don't know how sustainable it is, but it's also at this point in the season that doesn't really matter how sustainable it is. It's more like next season. I'm not sure I buy a Brady Singer as a top 50 starting pitcher or wherever he'll likely end up if he finishes the season strong.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so we already have a bust pick for next year. We've got Fernando Tatis' value. Now, all right. Oh my goodness gracious for you, Chris, from the weekend.
How about Vaughn Grissom, who we talked a little bit about when he got called up, but he hit 2 home runs in his first weekend. He's I don't know. The Braves are really good at developing young players. He's 21 years old. We're still not 100% sure what his like long-term rest of season outlook is as far as playing time, but it's like I said when he got called up, I think on Thursday's show. If he plays well, they're gonna find a place for him. That's just kind of how these things work. If you're a team that's hoping to make a playoffs and you got a 21-year-old who, comes out and hits 2 home runs in his first 3 or 4 games, and by the time Ozzy Albies is up, if he's got like an 850 OPS, he's gonna play. It's a question of where and how much, and those are fair questions, but I don't think that would be a reason to not pick up Vaughn Grissom at this point.
He seems pretty athletic. I don't know that it would be just a natural transition to just throw him in the outfield. They've got a couple of weeks here to kind of maybe work with him on that if they want to try it out. But yeah, he's been really good so far. He hit his second home run in game 2 of that doubleheader on Saturday. He's got multiple hits in 3 of his first 5 games. This is Vaughn Grissom. He's 56% rostered. He's got 7 home games this week. So he's pretty widely available. And I just looked at my leagues that ran fab already. 15-team roto leagues. He went for, this is out of a $1,000 budget, 49, 57, and 121. So obviously the 121 is an outlier, but I think if you want him and you're, still bidding, you're probably looking at like 5 to 7% if you have that much left. So just kind of keep that in mind. With
a lot of steals in the minors, already won in the majors. He reached base. This wasn't even one of the games he homered. He reached base 4 times on Sunday. And I agree they'll find a spot for him. They might have to send him down for a couple days just to get some exposure to the outfield. I could see it playing out that way. But they might not. They might just throw him in the outfield. He's already played some third base in the minors, so I guess they could possibly stick Austin Riley back in the outfield where he first broke in. But I doubt they do that at this stage of Riley's career. Just seem kind of weird to have 2 players playing out of position instead of just one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean,
They do
Austin
seem to
Riley's-
like Austin Riley's defense for
Yeah.
what it's worth. I don't necessarily know that they should, but they seem to like him more than the external or the public metrics indicate they would. So, I agree. It seems unlikely that they would move him out of that spot.
I had this for a little bit later on, Chris, but while we're talking about Grissom, would you rather add him or Jorge Mateo if you just had to choose between the two? Mateo, another massive game on Friday night. He went 5 for 5 with 2 doubles, 2 runs, and 2 RBI. He's 63% rostered. You legitimately might have to choose between those two. And 21 games post All-Star break for Mateo. He's batting .333 with 4 homers and 5 steals. He has been awesome.
I think I'd have to go with Mateo just because stolen bases are so hard to come by, especially in a categories-based leagues. Maybe in a points league, you could talk yourself into Grissom, but it's also it's always tough in those situations because it's less likely you're looking for help in a points league just because the rosters are so shallow. So I would say it's more likely you're adding Jorge Mateo.
There is a clear strike. I mean, if judging by Grissom's minor league numbers, which is mainly what I'm going on, there's a chasm in between how often these two players strike out. So I would say I would agree Grissom in points and Mateo in 5x5.
All right, fair enough. From Vaughn Grissom to Trent Grisham. That will be my oh my goodness gracious player from the weekend. He went 2 for 3 with a sock and a shoe on Saturday, his 15th home run, his 5th steal of the season. And in 14 August games, Trent Grisham is hot right now. 275 batting average, 5 homers, 1 steal. He's hitting the ball very hard, 91.5 mile per hour average exit velocity during that time, putting the ball in the air, 50% fly ball rate, and that has led to a 13.6% barrel rate for Trent Grisham in the month of August. And he's 42% rostered, pretty widely available. He's got 7 games this week, only 1 lefty on the schedule, and it's Patrick Corbin. So, like, whatever, it's Patrick Corbin. So I'm not really scared about that for Trent Grisham. Like, maybe he doesn't play that game, but so be it. He's hot, and he's got the games this upcoming week. Scott, how do you rank these 3 names that stood out to me this weekend? Outfielders: Trent Grisham, Franmil Reyes, now playing with the Cubs. He went 2 for 4, hit a home run on Saturday. And then AJ Pollock, back-to-back games with multiple hits and a home run in each of those as well. All 3 are widely available.
Yeah, I think Grisham's the most interesting of them. And I've been kind of a Grisham downer since, coming into the year. I had him on my preseason bust list, and that's mostly played out as I thought it would. His inability to impact the ball hard with this new ball. But he is impacting the ball really hard right now. And, he has a plate discipline advantage over those guys, a stolen base advantage over those guys, a lineup advantage over those guys. I think in all 3 cases, you're kind of dreaming about upside and most likely not going to get much. But I think if you're going to dream about upside, then Grisham's probably the one to do it with.
And it's worth noting, Grisham did start hitting the ball better in the month of July. It's not necessarily just a recent thing. He only had a 211 batting average in the month of July, but his expected batting average was 251, excuse me. His expected WOBA was 339, which was the highest of the season by far. So, not just necessarily a tiny sample size here for Trent Grisham.
All right, let's move back over to some waiver wire pitchers from the weekend, and got a group of 4 names here. Michael Wacha was amazing on Sunday Night Baseball against the Yankees. In his return, he went 7 shutout innings, 2 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts with 18 swinging strikes in that start. He's 63% rostered. He's at the Orioles this week. Braxton Garrett bounced back with a strong start against the Braves. He went 6 shutout, only 2 strikeouts to 3 walks, but nice start here. He's 61% rostered at the Dodgers, so obviously don't like that matchup. Aaron Ashby gets back on track with a quality start at the Cardinals on Sunday. 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts there. 57% rostered and at the Cubs this week. And then Cutter Crawford turns in another quality start. He was up against the Yankees, 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts in that one. And he's 27% rostered at the Orioles this week. Chris, how do you rank this group? Wacha, Garrett, Ashby, and Crawford.
I would say Garrett, Ashby, Wacha, Crawford would be the order I would rank them in. And I think they're Garrett and Ashby are probably maybe a little under rostered, although I don't think it's too much. 61%, 57% at this point in the season. Roster rates aren't going to move too much. So I think those all mostly make sense. Crawford is lower at 27%. I think it should be, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cutter Crawford was better than Michael Wacha the rest of the season. Michael Wacha has that really nice 2.44 ERA, and basically nothing else about him looks particularly good. So I'm betting against him moving forward. And if you wanted to take Cutter Crawford over Michael Wacha rest of the season just on the mystery box idea, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. The problem with Garrett and Ashby is if you need a play this week, you obviously don't want to use Garrett against the Dodgers. Ashby against the Cubs, like that's fine. It's an okay matchup. But Scott, what do you think? Maybe if you just need a play this week, do you maybe kind of lean on the Red Sox starters instead because they're at the Orioles? Although the Orioles are kind of good now.
Well, so the Orioles are good, but Baltimore is a very good place to pitch now. I saw, I want to say it was Alex Fast tweeted that the park factor for home runs at Camden Yards went from the best in baseball last season to the worst this season, which is incredible. So, while it's not a bad matchup, it's a pretty good place to hit.
Yeah, that's fine. I can't see myself starting Braxton Garrett. Like he deserves to be ranked the highest of this group. The competition's not that tough, and he's certainly recently had the most success. I can't see myself starting him against the Dodgers. Like I'm normally not somebody who's like going to automatically sit a pitcher and maybe at Colorado, but Garrett, the end result in this start against the Braves was good, but the Braves strike out a lot for as good as their offense is. And Braxton Garrett had just the 2 strikeouts against them in 6 innings. And that was, remember, this was supposed to be kind of a very important week for Garrett because his success was 2 starts against the Pirates, 2 starts against the Reds. He gets the Phillies and Braves this week, goes pretty poorly against the Phillies. He gets the quality start against the Braves, but did he pitch that well? Like, did the reasons for our optimism against those bad clubs carry over against the Braves? And I would say it didn't. So I think the jury's still very much out on Braxton Garrett, and I wouldn't be willing to risk it against the Dodgers.
Agreed.
Completely agree with that. Would you be willing to drop Corey Kluber for any of, I guess, the pitchers we've mentioned to this point? He has allowed 4+ runs in 4 of his last 5 starts. His ERA is up to 4.40, and he's still 85% rostered. So I could see maybe dropping him for some of these names. What do you guys think?
I'm surprised it took this long for his numbers to get that bad.
Scott, drop Corey Kluber for any of the names we just mentioned, or maybe even the ones earlier?
I mean, I don't have. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's fine. His ERA is blown up to 4.40, and his xFIP is, it's not that great either. It's 3.82. So, it wouldn't surprise me if he's better than all of them going forward. But like, after giving up 7 earned runs,
do you really?
Against
it's the kind of thing like, is there any opportunity cost to dropping him? I don't really think so. I think it's unlikely you're going to miss him.
Right.
If, let's say he pitches to a 3.81 ERA with a strikeout printing the rest of the season, like that's useful enough, but it's probably not the reason you're going to lose a championship if it happens.
Right.
Some waiver wire pitchers in deeper leagues from the weekend. Domingo Germán had his first quality start of the season at the Red Sox, 6 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts there. Daniel Lynch, scoreless start up against the Dodgers, 5 shutout with 3 strikeouts. Austin Voth quietly has been pretty good with the Orioles this season. He's pitched 42 innings with them, 3.21 ERA, and an 11.8% swinging strike rate. And then Tucker Davidson, who is now with the Angels, put together a quality start against the Twins on Sunday. 6 innings, 2 runs, 3 strikeouts there. And he's at the Tigers this week. We know that the Tigers are very bad. Scott, what do you think? Any interest in these names in deeper leagues? Davidson, Voth, Lynch, and Germán.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with is bad pitcher worth picking up in deeper league, because like it's just if I'm not starting a good pitcher, I'll just start a reliever. is generally how I look at it. And look, Domingo Germán's been a good enough pitcher in the past, so I'm monitoring him. I haven't seen anything that wowed me yet. Daniel Lynch has, that slider of his looks like a good swing and miss pitch. Very vulnerable to home runs and just not. I don't think he's quite rounded into enough that I'm willing to trust him. Austin Voth has some interesting underlying numbers, but again, it's just not enough to win me over yet.
All right. Anything with the Braves pitchers, Scott? I mean, they pitched well against the Marlins. It's kind of like you take it with a grain of salt. The Marlins lineup is so bad. Chris, I think you said since the start of July, before we started the podcast, you said they're averaging 2.6 runs per game. So obviously their offense is putrid, but do you put any stock in, what these call-ups did this weekend, Scott? It's Ian Anderson, Kyle Muller, Bryce Elder. They all pitched well, but they also all got optioned back to the minors.
All right. Even the Braves know that, that it was like I kind of think because they skipped Kyle Wright's turn. He was dealing with arm fatigue. It doesn't sound serious. It just sounds like a skip turn. But obviously they're trying to keep pace with the Mets, and I think they realized that against the Marlins they could just run 3 minor league I'll call Ian Anderson a minor league caliber arm right now out there and probably win, and that's exactly what happened. So this stat from Mike Petrillo, is that how you say his name?
I think it's Petriello.
Petriello, thank you. Miami has now scored 3 runs or fewer in 15 straight, which is the longest streak since the 1979 Cubs. That's how bad they've been.
Yikes.
So I will mention Bryce Elder had the most impressive start of the 3, struck out 10 in 7 innings, 3 hits allowed. That was on Sunday. And we saw him up earlier in the year. Not really a pitcher who you think of being a big strikeout guy. Doesn't throw especially hard, averages 91.
Only got 9 swinging strikes.
Yeah. And the AAA, he had a couple AAA starts this good, but the overall, the ERA was over 4 overall. So I'm not even though he was the best of the 3, he had from a dynasty standpoint, he had the most ground to make up already. So I don't think it really moves the needle for any of them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's another player that stands out to you guys, but more strikeouts than swinging strikes in a start. I just kind of associate that with Adam Wainwright at this point.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else who does it more? I feel like it happens so often with him. Maybe Martin.
Probably happens a lot with Zach Gallen.
Yeah. Martin Perez, I know he gets a lot of strikeouts looking, so he might be another one there. But anytime you see more strikeouts than swinging strikes, it's a little bit skeptical, obviously. We did have some prospect happenings from the weekend that I wanted to quickly mention. The Orioles called up pitching prospect DL Hall, who made his debut on Saturday against the Rays. It did not go very well. 3 2/3, 5 hits, 5 runs. He did have 6 strikeouts through 47 of his 76 pitches for strikes. And I was watching this start. Everything kind of snowballed in the 3rd inning on him, where he struggled with his command, which is obviously a huge problem for him still. And then he kind of became more hittable as a result of that, trying to get back into the strike zone. But that is DL Hall. And oddly enough, optioned back to the minors right after the start. And he's going to pitch out of their bullpen in the minors. And he's going to return later this year to kind of, help the Orioles make their wild card push. So he will be back, but it sounds like as a reliever. Chris, I guess that means that we don't need to add DL Hall in redraft leagues. How are you handling it?
No. I mean, look, he had a 4.52 ERA in the minors this season. There's clearly talent there, but 1.416 whip this season, 5.2 walks per nine. It's like a 13 or 14% walk rate. Tons of strikeouts, 37% strikeout rate. But I think he's clearly got a lot of work left to do to be a viable major league pitcher. And maybe he can come up in the bullpen and do some nice things. They've got a good bullpen already, so that would help. But I don't think there's much reason to be in on him in redraft leagues at the very least.
I think they're going to be cautious with DL Hall's innings as well, because last year he threw just 31 2/3. He's already up to 81 1/3 this season, if you combine the majors and the minors. So I think that's kind of the answer for the move to the bullpen as well. Scott, CJ Abrams is getting recalled. Well, I guess just called up by the Nationals. First time since being traded there in the Juan Soto trade. Luis Garcia was placed on the IL, so they're obviously looking for some help in the middle infield. And so far, 8 games in the minors with the Nationals. He was hitting .290 with 4 steals. No pop, no homers during that time, but 33% rostered, 7 games this week. Are you looking to maybe re-add CJ Abrams in those deeper category leagues?
Yeah, and a deep enough one, sure. He's probably going to get the playing time's probably going to be less interrupted with the Nationals than it was with the Padres. They didn't, between either of his stints in the majors before, they didn't run Abrams out there every day, and that the Nationals may have no choice but to do that. I'm skeptical he's going to make an impact this year, given that we have seen him get those 2 previous stints in the majors and did next to nothing. But if it's a deep enough categories league and guys like Jorge, Mateo, and Vaughn, Grissom are already gone, then you could look to add Abrams, I guess.
All right. A couple other prospect happenings from the weekend. Guardians pitching prospect Peyton Battenfield was promoted to be an extra arm out of the bullpen. James Karinchak was on the restricted list, but I don't really think there's anything there with him. And then he's not a prospect, but he was pretty good in the minors. Rockies 31-year-old outfielder Winton Bernard was hitting .325 with 17 homers and 26 steals at AAA, and he was.
You know what's going to happen?
What happened?
He's going to hit like 320 over 80 plate appearances over the next like 7 weeks, and he's going to be a sleeper for fantasy next year, and we're going to be furious when he plays 2 out of every 7 games in April of next season.
He's going to be our Connor Joe for next season.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the number of players that could apply to for the Rockies over the last like 4 or 5 years is immeasurable. Sam Hilliard's another one. There's another name I'm blanking on, but yeah, this is
Garrett Hampson. I feel like some people still think
it's
going to be something, but I don't think it's going to happen. Anyway, just a name to watch, I guess. Winton Bernard, he does have a little bit of pop and speed, and if he's playing for the Rockies, maybe some good things could happen there. Before we hit the break, just want to let everyone know that Fantasy Baseball Today is a finalist in the sports category of the People's Choice Podcast Awards. Thanks to everybody who nominated us. So we really do appreciate that. The job, however, is not done yet. If you voted for FBT previously, then check your email inbox because they randomly selected some of those who previously voted to now vote in the finals. So voting runs through September 13th. Please go check. And if you were selected, then help us out and vote for FBT. Also, the Fantasy Football Today Draftathon is approaching. And if you listen to FFT with Adam, obviously those guys do a fantastic job. And this is a really, really cool experience. And it's a really great day, this Draftathon. It's filled with fun and analysis. But the main cause is that they're raising money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And I'm happy to announce that we are auctioning off a spot in one of our podcast listener leagues for next season. So if you want to play against us, Scott, Chris, and myself, you want a spot in one of these leagues, there is a link that I will include in the podcast and YouTube description. It's an eBay link. And again, all of the proceeds for this will go to St. Jude's Children's Hospital as part of the FFT Draftathon. So really cool experience there. If you want to get in, again, the link will be in the podcast and the YouTube description. Let's take a break and we'll be back right after this. The news and notes, and there's a lot from the weekend. Bryce Harper will take batting practice on the field Monday, the first time since injuring his thumb. Progress, good. Ronald Acuna, this, not so good. He left in the second game of Saturday's doubleheader with right knee soreness, and he was not in the lineup on Sunday. And it sounds like Acuna will not go on the IL, but pretty concerning. It's obviously the same knee that he had surgery on. Scott, do you have you seen more on this? Are you willing to still start him this week? What do you think about Acuna?
I'm still willing to start him this week. Yeah, there was some question as to whether he'd play Sunday, and I think they decided to play it safe and had him sit another game. But I think I haven't seen officially, but I think he'll be back in the lineup Monday or Tuesday.
Mike Trout participated in a full round of batting practice on Sunday, but remains without a clear timetable. He has said that he wants to return later on this season, so we'll see. George Springer is on track to rejoin the Blue Jays at some point this week. He's been on the IL with elbow inflammation. And Chris, one of your guys, are you rolling with George Springer this week?
Yeah. I mean, if he's going to return early in the week, then I think that's okay. Yeah.
Another one of you guys, Giancarlo Stanton, is targeting a full pregame routine on Monday and will hopefully begin a rehab assignment sometime this week. He's been out since July with Achilles tendonitis. So it doesn't sound like he will be back yet, but we're getting closer with Stanton. Wander Franco is nearing a rehab assignment with the Rays Florida Complex League team. He's been out since early July with a fractured hamate bone, and the timetable for that was 5 to 8 weeks. So we're kind of right in that time period right now. So I think we could see Wander Franco within the next week or two. Luis Severino will throw a bullpen session on Monday. He's been out since mid-July with a strained right lat and is not eligible to return until mid-September. Clayton Kershaw's back is feeling much better thanks to his epidural injection, and he currently remains without a timetable as well. Speaking of the Dodgers, Dustin May finally will make his season debut next Saturday against the Marlins. I saw someone tweeted us just before, Scott, saying, what's our prediction for strikeouts for Dustin May against the Marlins? And said something crazy, like 13 strikeouts over 6 innings pitched.
I'm
going to say 7 and 5.
That's pretty good.
I'll give him a shot. I'll say 9 and 5. I'll go almost as aggressive as that guy.
Very nice.
I mean, that's what he was doing against AAA hitters, and I don't know that the Marlins lineup is that different right now.
You're not wrong. Andrew Heaney left his start on Saturday with a bruised arm, but he expects to make his next start, which will be at the Brewers. Ramon Laureano was removed Sunday with side soreness. Bailey Ober threw a 25-pitch bullpen session on Friday and is expected to throw another one on Tuesday. He's been out since early June with a groin injury. Chris, are you looking to stash Bailey Ober maybe in some deeper leagues right now? He's 21% rostered.
If you've got the IL spot, I don't think he's particularly good, so it's not a priority for me.
Fair enough. Michael Brantley underwent an arthroscopic labral repair on his right shoulder and will miss the remainder of the season. Brian Anderson and John Birdie were both reinstated for the Marlins on Friday. Birdie is 55% rostered, and we know that he can run wild. So if you need steals, he is out there. Brian Hayes has missed 3 straight with back spasms, and Juan Yepez could be reinstated from the IL on Tuesday. And Scott, if that happens, who do you think might lose playing time for the Cardinals?
Well, it could be one of my sleeper hitters for this week, Lars Nootbaar, even though he's been playing well of late. I would guess Yepez wouldn't just have an everyday role right away. I mean, they have had a revolving door at DH, so maybe they could plug Yepez in there primarily. But I'm not counting on Yepez being an everyday player necessarily when he gets back.
All right. These names went to the IL this weekend. The Nationals, Luis Garcia with knee and groin issues, Alex Colomé with tennis elbow, Jonathan Dasley.
Why is he playing tennis during baseball season?
I don't know. That's a really fair question.
It's like riding a motorcycle.
Come on.
Speaking of which, I am scheduled to face off against Ariel Cohen in tennis later this week. So I'll let everyone know how that goes. Last time it didn't go well. Ariel beat me. So, I'll keep you up to date.
Do you play much tennis?
I dabble, Scott. I played back in high school, and then I didn't pick it up for, I don't know, 6-7 years after that. And I've started playing again the past couple of years.
But you played in like an official capacity in high school?
Oh, yeah.
So you know what you're doing.
So it was kind of a weird situation. I did not play tennis at all before high school. And so when I played in high school, it was solely based on athleticism, which, let's be honest, 15 years later, I don't really have as much athleticism as I did back in high school. So
but you're pretty athletic back in the day, huh?
I tried, man. Yeah, I played a bunch of different stuff: basketball, baseball, flag football.
I've never actually been in the same room with you, so I haven't gotten. I don't even have a picture of the whole physique of Frank. I just see.
We got to get Scott up here so he can see the full physique.
Yeah. I mean, you're really not missing out on much, Scott. 5'9", 175.
Just go find the video I tweeted of him dancing at his wedding.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the coolest thing I've ever done. So we'll just leave it there. We'll make it happen soon. Don't worry. I think I'll wind up in Florida eventually, and we'll hang out, Scotty. A couple of their names went to the IL. Pirates reliever Yerry De Los Santos, 60-day IL for him with a right lat strain. Tarek Skubal was transferred to the 60-day IL as well on Friday. He will miss the remainder of the season. Starters sit these players who are currently banged up. Kyle Schwarber has not started 3 straight with that calf injury, though he did pinch hit on Saturday. What do you guys think about Schwarbs?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough call. I mean, when you pinch hit, obviously that would suggest they're not planning on putting you in the IL because that ruins the back date. So I guess I'd lean yes on Schwarber, but it's going to be in like 3 outfielder head-to-head leagues, weigh your options, I guess.
Luis Robert has missed 2 straight with a sprained left wrist and is not expected to go on the IL. And it's been a frustrating season for Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Production, not necessarily where I thought it was going to be. I thought he was going to be amazing. And then on top of that, he's just been constantly banged up. So, Chris, what do you think about playing him this week?
I would prefer to, but I'm facing a tough decision with Ronald Acuna. I feel like that's a similar one where I'm just not 100% sure. And I've got like Alec Thomas. So he's iffy enough that I might just go with Acuna. And I think Robert's probably in the same spot.
Speaking of Alec Thomas, man, I completely whiffed on this one. Apologies. I thought it was going to be the breakout week for Alec Thomas. It did not happen. I think he had 6 fantasy points this week. So not great. Not great. Jonathan India has missed 2 straight, but it is not expected to require an IL stint. Scott, what do you think about Jonathan India?
I mean, he hasn't really done enough to deserve starting to start, even if he was completely healthy. So I'd play it safe with him.
DJ LeMahieu did not play on Sunday because of a foot and toe injury, and he will have imaging done on Monday. This one sounds kind of scary, Chris. What do you think about DJ LeMahieu?
Yeah, anytime they're getting the MRI taken before the games on Monday, I would tend to say no and hope that you have some more information before you have to hit submit.
So Kyle Wright, Scott, I saw he's dealing with that right arm fatigue, which you mentioned, and he apparently will not start in this first series against the Mets either. So the first half of the week, we just don't necessarily know when he's going to pitch again. So what do you think about, do you take Kyle Wright out of your lineups?
I would prefer to. Yeah. I mean, he's a top 30 pitcher, so I would imagine not everybody has that luxury. I expect he will start at some point this week. I think it's more likely than not, but you'd rather not take a 0 from a starting pitcher if you can help it.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's get into some other waiver wire hitters, some deep league names here from the weekend. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa went 3 for 4 with his first homer of the season on Saturday. Outside of no power, he's kind of just been Kiner-Falefa. He's batting .269. He's got 15 steals, 35% rostered with 7 home games this week. David Fletcher had 5 hits this weekend. He has led off 6 straight for the Angels. And Rodolfo Castro went 2 for 4 with a home run on Friday. He plays for the Pirates, by the way. He has 3 straight multi-hit games, and he's only 1% rostered. So very deep league names. He's got any IKF, Fletcher, or Rodolfo Castro?
I mean, I guess Kiner-Falefa is still the guy. I mean, he steals some bases. He's in a good lineup. Yankees fans really dislike Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, right? Like, I've gotten that impression on Twitter in recent weeks that he is.
Aaron Judge apparently blocked most of the John Boy media team because of the Isaiah Kiner-Falefa stuff this weekend.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny.
Well, I like, he's become the source of Yankees fans' ire now that Joey Gallo is gone. And like, I get why Yankees fans were frustrated with Gallo. He goes from being this all-star caliber player to, unstartable. But like, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has just been Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Like, if his performance has disappointed you, you had too high expectations to begin with.
Starting middle infielder all season long on my first place Roto League.
15 steals, baby.
I've started him all season long in one of my 15 teamers as well, and it's batting average and steals.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not getting anything else but 15 steals and a 270 average. Like, there are worse things you can get for your fantasy team.
It is odd that I didn't realize that fans were coming after IKF. I mean, he has been a letdown defensively. I guess if there's one thing you want to point at, like, he was regarded as this great defender.
He has a positive defensive WAR, which
the team's been bad. The team's been bad for like a month, and they have to blame someone. Like,
he
that's
has
all
only 11 errors, which 3/4 of the way into the season is pretty good for a shortstop. How has he been bad defensively?
He is, according to StatCast, he is 14th percentile in outs above average.
Well, why does he have such a high defensive WAR?
I have no idea. But I mean, I have seen a lot of bad throws from him this season. So, I mean, that's just my experience watching him.
11
and I think
errors.
Leave him alone.
In general, people probably just want to see Peraza or Volpe. And
yeah, well,
those guys are not ready yet. So it is what it is. A couple deep league. I was about to say middle infielders. These are corner infielders. Emmanuel Rivera had a double dong on Saturday for the Diamondbacks. He has 6 hits and 3 home runs over his last 3 games. And Joey Meneses, he plays for the Washington Nationals. He has 5 straight multi-hit games and 4 homers in his last 6 outings. So he's playing well. And this season in the minors, he was hitting 286, 20 homers, and 830 OPS. Chris, 15 teamers. Any interest in these two? Emmanuel Rivera, Joey Meneses.
It would have to be a super deep league, especially for Meneses. Like, I know his minor league numbers were decent this year, but that's as a 30-year-old in AAA. So I don't think there's much there. No, I don't have much interest in either.
I don't think there is either, but like when you homer 5 times in your first 10 games in a 15-team league, like he probably belongs on somebody's roster, right? I think he got picked up in all my 15-team leagues when waivers ran tonight. I didn't pick him up myself because I couldn't start another first baseman, but I don't know. Maybe he'll have like a odds are against it. I get it, but maybe he'll have like Luke Voigt wasn't supposed to be anything, and then he comes up hitting a bunch of home runs for the Yankees and becomes a thing. Like the Nationals don't have many hitters, so he's gonna keep getting chances as long as he hits.
You know where I thought you were going?
I think Rivera is a little more interesting, actually.
Okay.
I thought you were going the Frank Schwindel route with Joey Meneses.
Yeah, that was the thought I had too.
5 straight multi-hit games. Dare I say, Joey 2 hits.
Joey 2 hits.
I'm just going to speak that into the world.
Okay. I think Powers, like Frank Schwindel is primarily batting average in theory. Obviously, he hasn't hit for average this year. Meneses, I think primarily, like part of the reason he's 30 and just getting a call now is because he played a lot of overseas. But anyway, yeah, he's probably nothing. But he's more interesting than like the last 7 hitters you mentioned, probably.
Well, my guess is that you probably won't care much about these 2 names either. Deep league outfielders, Greg Allen went 2 for 4 with his first home run on Friday. He has 3 steals over his last 5 games and is very fast. And Jake Fraley with the Reds has 5 hits in his last 2 games, and he has led off both of those for Cincinnati, and he's 3% rostered. So you guys care about either of these names in deep leagues? Greg Allen, Jake Fraley.
Like, we liked Fraley coming in.
Yeah.
Getting a shot at the smaller venue after putting up some pretty good underlying numbers in Seattle. And yeah, he's hit well since coming off the IL. But I don't think he's started against a lefty yet since coming off the IL. And so that's going to be an issue. And it's more of a scout team situation for me than I'm picking him up.
All right, let's get back over to the pitching side of things. And Lance McCullers made his season debut against the Oakland A's on Saturday. He went 6 shutout with 5 strikeouts in that game. And I did notice the sinker and curve velocity down 1 mile per hour each in this start, which, for his first start, that's not terrible. He likely can build up. The only difference I saw in the pitch mix was that he was throwing his changeup a little bit more compared to years past. And he's 84% rostered, probably not out there in many leagues anymore. Chris, what did you think about this season debut from McCullers, and would you start him at the Braves this week?
Probably not. I don't think there was all that much impressive about it. The velocity was down, 7 swinging strikes on 81 pitches. I know that's not everything, but he was always a pretty good, not great pitcher at his best. And I don't know if he's at his best yet. Oakland's a nice soft landing spot. Atlanta's a much tougher matchup. So I would prefer to go away from him. I still have I'm very skeptical still.
I just realized, so he's facing the Braves this week. Scott, this is a pretty rough week, huh? I mean, the Braves get the Mets and the Astros. That's tough stuff.
Well, I noticed they had the 5th worst hitter matchups. I didn't think about it much beyond that.
I don't even know from like a pitching perspective. I just mean from like a real life baseball.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. I hadn't gotten around to weighing the real life implications. You're right. Yeah. They need to have.
It's crazy.
They need to have a bit. They need to do better against the Mets this time than they did last time. That's for sure.
Sure do. All right, starter sit these pitchers. Cal Quantrill, back-to-back scoreless outings. He was at the Blue Jays this weekend. 7 shutout, only 1 hit allowed, 7 strikeouts, and his velocity, his sinker velo, up 1.2 miles per hour compared to season's average. And he's only 56% started this week, but he's going up against the Tigers. So I think we got to get him in there, Scotty.
Yeah, I don't think Cal Quantrill's ever a must start, but if there's a time to use him, it's against what, at least for the season, still rates as the worst lineup in baseball. Marlins are going worse right now, but the Tigers are still bad.
Jose Barrios, 2 rough outings in a row. He was up against the Guardians, 4 innings, 8 runs allowed in this one, 2 more homers allowed. He has now given up 26 home runs in 23 starts, which ties a career high, and he still has, I don't know, at least 8 starts left to go in the season. So it's been a very bad season for Barrios, and he's at the Yankees this week. Chris, would you start or sit there?
I'd probably keep starting him, but it's mostly because I don't have a good explanation for why why he's good when he's good and why he's bad when he's bad. So I just stick with my baseline assumption, which is that he's pretty good.
Well, ERA is what for the season now? Like I was back on board.
He's been bad. Yeah.
I was back on board when he had that 3 ERA in July. But then, 2 terrible starts to begin August. And it's just like, I'm kind of the other way. Like if I don't have an explanation for why I can still, I can ignore these last 2 starts, and based on the way the full season is gone, I don't have a good reason to ignore the last 2 starts. I'm like, he's an automatic sit for me, especially against the Yankees.
Jose Barrios, the season-long ERA here on August 15th is 5.61. And his expected ERA, according to StatCast, is 5.59.
No, that's the thing, is that the expected numbers have been dreadful all season. And so when I mean that, like, I don't have a good explanation, it's mostly just that if you compare his season over season metrics, obviously the surface level, like the strikeout rate is down, he's getting hit a lot harder, but like the pitch stuff doesn't look all that much different. That's what I mean, is that like it doesn't.
No, I get you, but it's like it's mid-August. If it was mid-May,
no, that's fair. That's fair.
The last 2 names here on this list, we'll just quickly run through. Nathan Eovaldi, he's at the Pirates this week. He's, the velocity is still down for him. And then Lance Lynn turned in a quality start against the Tigers. The problem this week, he's at the Guardians, and they're a pretty pesky lineup. Scott, what do you think about those 2? Eovaldi at the Pirates, Lynn at the Guardians.
I'm not willing to trust in Eovaldi until I see the velocity get back to where we're used to seeing it remains down about 2 miles per hour, even though he's managed to find a little success recently with it. I don't trust him to sustain that. I think Lance Lynn's fine, to be honest. I know his 3 of his last 5 starts have been great. They were all against bad lineups, but so were the 2 bad starts. So we don't have like a control there to measure it against. I just think now, like, he got his fastball velocity up to 93.6, I think is what he averaged in this start. And last year he averaged 94 on his fastball. So that's pretty much built up to where it was after being down early. He's getting enough swinging strikes. He's been a little rusty, but I think he's coming around. I think he's okay.
Righty.
That's Lance Lynn. By the way, while we're on the subject of regaining velocity, did you happen to notice that on Sunday, Shane Bieber averaged on his fastball 93.1, which is basically where it was early last season when he was getting like double-digit strikeouts every start.
It's 2 miles an hour up from where he's been this season.
Yeah. I don't know where it came from. It wasn't an especially good start. It was fine. It was normal Shane Bieber start, but like that was encouraging to see.
Yeah. His velocity was actually up on all of his pitches. 2 miles per hour on the fastball, 1.5 on the slider, and 1 mile per hour on the cutter. So this is really the first start where we've seen this, but it's something to watch to see if that velocity remains up for Shane Bieber. A couple of pitchers duels this weekend. Aaron Nola at Jacob deGrom. This was awesome on Saturday. Nola, 8 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts. Tough luck loss for him. Jacob deGrom, I mean, what do you say? 6 shutout innings.
He's got a 50% strikeout rate.
6 shutout.
I think 48.3% K minus walk rate so far.
He has a 24.6% swinging strike rate and a 50% chase rate. League average for both of those numbers is 11% and 32%.
He's just the best.
I don't know what to say. Like, of course, if you have him, just like run him out there. I'm going to stick to my default. I would still try and sell him if I could in a redraft league, but I also get why you wouldn't want to do that. So the only caution, I guess, is 76 pitches and back-to-back starts, but it doesn't even matter. He's still awesome, even in only 76 pitches. So whatever.
I guess the best way to put it is try to sell him, but for so much that you're probably not going to end up selling him.
Yeah.
And that's fine because he's Jacob deGrom.
Would you take Aaron Nola for him?
No.
I would.
Maybe. I don't know. I definitely have Nola. I have Nola ranked
I think
higher
he's
rest of
impossible.
season.
Like it's impossible. It's impossible.
That's not that doesn't blow me away enough to trade deGrom away, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Another pitcher's duel we had Corbin Burnes at Adam Wainwright. Burnes went 7 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, and then Wainwright technically complete game asterisk because the game went into extra innings, but he goes 9 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts in that start. Scott, anything on either of Burnes or Wainwright?
Not really.
All right.
They're Burnes and Wainwright.
Sure. Wainwright, by the way, ERA is down to 3.27. So just doing Adam Wainwright things. Any concern over Shane McClanahan? Shane O'Mac. He's turned in a quality start against the Orioles, but now has 4 strikeouts or less in 3 straight. He goes 6 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. So, the whip is obviously high in this one. He did have 20 swinging strikes, so maybe deserved more strikeouts than he wound up with in this one. His velocity down a little bit once again. And during those 3 starts, he's got a 5.94 ERA, 1.56 whip. Chris, what are your concerns?
I mean, everything. We had some concerns about how he would handle pitching deep into the season. Now, obviously, those concerns were more about whether the Rays would limit him, but I don't know. It's hard not to feel like he's hitting a bit of a wall. Now, the one thing is that his velocity has been a little up and down over the past couple of starts. I think the one before this start, it was actually up, but it had been down the 2 previous starts. So, yeah, but he clearly hasn't had the same sharpness or effectiveness. And what you've seen here is that early on in the season, he was pitching 6 innings consistently because he was so efficient. Now, in this one, he pitched 6 innings because they let him throw 100 pitches. I'm not sure they're going to keep letting him throw 100 pitches. And so I think there are real concerns about how deep he's going to go into games if he's not going to be as effective. So I still think, I'm not saying you panic about Shane McClanahan, but given the concerns we had about how he would handle the late season and the innings jump, I think it's more than reasonable to be concerned.
The problem is, what do you do, right? So you continue to start him, I think, and you could try to shop him if your trade deadline hasn't passed. But if I trade Shane McClanahan, I want a top 10 hitter in return.
The other player in your league knows why you're concerned.
Exactly.
Presumably. Yeah. So that's always going to be the question. Yeah, that's always going to be the struggle in these situations.
Yeah. So it's pretty tough to really do anything actionable with Shane McClanahan.
I would not be willing to trade him for even 90 cents on the dollar. I think, which means you're probably not trading him. It's kind of the same way. Well, Aaron Nola would be 90 cents on the dollar, right? Would you trade McClanahan for Aaron Nola? Are you dropping McClanahan behind Nola in your rest of season rankings?
I think I would do Nola for McClanahan. Yeah,
I could see it. I would do it in a points league.
I'm not that scared.
League,
Scared money don't make money.
Yeah.
You already made money though.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
All right, we're kind of up against it here, so I'm just really going to pick out the, biggest things remaining from the weekend. Michael Kopech, 6 no-hit innings pitched with 11 strikeouts against the Tigers this weekend with 22 swinging strikes. That was massive. Logan Webb had a huge game as well against the Pirates. He went 8 shutout with 9 strikeouts. Blake Snell, just awesome start against the Nationals. His 3rd double-digit strikeout start of the season.
No walks.
Yeah. I mean, that's been huge for him. His last 5 starts, he only has 5 walks during that span and a 0.96 ERA, well over a strikeout per inning during that time, 13% swinging strike rate. Scott, anything you'd like to add on Snell, Logan Webb, Michael Kopech? Really big weekend for all 3.
Yeah, Snell keeps making me look like an idiot. So that's fun. I mean, if he's throwing strikes, the stuff is still amazing. I don't really know why things have changed for him, but I guess I'm back on board with that. And Michael Kopech, this was by far his most, like the best he's looked this year. 11 strikeouts, season high. The 22 swinging strikes were a season high by like 9, I think. Again, hard to understand why he wasn't throwing that much harder. The velocity's been down since moving from the bullpen, but it didn't improve enough to make me think that's the reason why. I think it was more just he was facing the Tigers, but I would doubt it's the first time he's faced the Tigers this year, and then it didn't go like this before. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of Michael Kopech. Still down on him overall, but this was nice to see.
I noticed over his last, I believe it's 4 starts, he has a 14.3% swinging strike rate. Obviously helped out pretty massively by this one, but
Right.
a couple of those other starts have been pretty good in terms of whiffs as well. Some hitting standouts, I guess just the biggest stuff. Aaron Judge socking his shoe on Friday. He's up to 46 homers, 12 steals, 100 RBI for the season. Max Muncy, another huge game on Saturday. He went 4 for 5 with his 14th home run. And in August, he's hitting 400 with 5 homers and a near 98 mile per hour average exit velocity. So something is going right for Max Muncy right now. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Maybe he's finally healthy, but he looks really good so far in August. And then got to mention, Albert Pujols, awesome moment Sunday. Double dong for him. Brings him up to 689 career home runs. Bullpen, biggest stuff this weekend. The Yankees is big right now. Clay Holmes entered the 9th inning on Friday with a 1-run lead. He gave up a hit, 2 walks, took his 4th blown save in his last 12 appearances. And apparently the Yankees are considering removing him from the closer's role. So Scott Efros picked up the save on Saturday. And, listening to the broadcast on Sunday night, it sounds like they still kind of want to build Chapman up. They don't want to just throw him back in that role. So I think they're going to match for now.
He did work the 8th ahead of Efros. So I actually did pick up Efros in one of those deep roto leagues where you could never find saves on waivers. But I suspect, like, Chapman's 70% rostered in CBS Sports League, so I'm going to write about him in the waiver wire column. I suspect he'll be back in the role soon enough. He's looked much better of late.
All right. For the Rangers on Saturday, Jonathan Hernandez picked up his 3rd save. For the Diamondbacks on Sunday, Ian Kennedy picked up his 8th save. For the Nationals, I noticed that Carl Edwards picked up another save on Saturday with Kyle Finnegan pitching in the 7th inning. So Edwards is someone who I added in a few deeper category leagues this weekend as well. For the Red Sox, I noticed John Schreiber pitched 2 innings on Saturday, and he took his 2nd loss. He gave up 1 run in that one. Garrett Whitlock actually picked up the save on Sunday. So again, those 2 are kind of alternating. And then Alexis Diaz on Sunday, he kind of came in to save Hunter Strickland, who looked terrible once again in the 8th inning. Diaz recorded the final 5 outs for his 5th save of the season. Chris, if you need saves, how do you rank this group? It's a pretty big one. Alexis Diaz, Jonathan Hernandez, Ian Kennedy, Carl Edwards, and the Red Sox guys. So that would be Schreiber and Garrett Whitlock.
I would think Hernandez, Diaz, Kennedy, Edwards, and then the Red Sox guys.
I think it makes sense. I think the Red Sox relievers are both really good, but they're...
Yeah, that's the problem is, like, I have Whitlock and Schreiber in multiple leagues, but not necessarily for saves. So it's more like 15-team leagues where I'm looking for ratios help rather than saves. So if that's what you're looking for, I think those 2 might be the best 2 pitchers here. But, if you're specifically looking for saves, they're probably have to rank last.
Let's wrap up with to stream or not to stream. We'll start with Monday. Aaron Savali versus the Tigers. Yusei Kikuchi versus the Orioles. No. Chris Bubich at the Twins. James Kaprielian at the Rangers. Glenn Otto versus the A's. And Madison Bumgarner at the Giants. Ooh, revenge game.
I kind of feel like the abrupt no applies for all of these.
If I'm forced to pick one, I'm picking Savale against the Tigers.
All right. On Tuesday, we have a ton of names. Kyle Gibson at the Reds, Edward Cabrera versus the Padres, Mitch Keller versus the Red Sox, Nick Pivetta at the Pirates, Justin Steele at the Nationals, Jeffrey Springs at the Yankees, Zach Plesac versus the Tigers, Zach Greinke at the Twins, Jose Quintana versus the Rockies, JP Sears at the Rangers, and Jose Suarez versus the Mariners.
Gibson? I like Cabrera. I just hate the matchup.
Steal of Washington, I'm fine with.
Yeah. Keller, I'm starting in a couple of leagues, but that's more because he's a 2-start with Cincinnati later on in the week.
Actually, there are a few I'm fine with here.
I think Quintana might be my favorite, actually.
Right, yeah, I was about to say that. Jose Quintana at home against the Rockies is probably number 1. And then I'd probably go Steele to Plesac against the Tigers 3, Gibson 4.
And Edward Cabrera, I mean, just make sure you add him because I think he's going to be really good. It's just don't really like the matchup against the Padres, obviously. All right, we're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.